So as I sit here in late June of 2024, waiting very expectantly on the new OS version for the Quad Cortex that'll support plugins and a few other features. It's coming soon, right? And as I kind of get to know the new Tone X1 that I bought and kind of the Tone X ecosystem, it's gotten me thinking about the future of modeling, specifically around kind of the economics of it. How are we going to pay for modelers and the software and plugins and captures and tone models and those kinds of things? And as I start to think about that, I'm kind of thinking about it in a few ways. One, let's think about it, as a player, as a consumer of that. Let's maybe think about it from the company's point of view, so the Neural DSPs or iCane Media and those kind of companies. And then let's think about what are some of the possibilities of where this could go. And so when we think about it as players, historically, guitar equipment, you buy a pedal, you buy an amp, you buy a guitar, it does what it does. You either like it or you don't, and you use it, and if you're like me, eventually you probably sell it, so you can buy the next thing. So that's one of the nice things about the guitar equipment is a lot of times you can cycle through it and get some of the value back. And with modelers, typically when you're buying a Fractal or even a Quad Cortex or a Line 6, Helix, it's the same kind of thing. You're buying a device and you can get resale off of that. But one of the things different about modelers in these ways is, as consumers of them, we have an expectation of a continual kind of upkeep and expansion of what they can do. So the hardware comes, but you expect kind of regular releases and new features and new models and those kinds of things. And that's very different from your typical guitar equipment. When you buy an overdrive pedal, you don't usually expect to get a free upgrade to it. So it's kind of interesting, that dynamic that we have this expectation of those continuous updates to these devices. And obviously the companies have an interest in doing that because the more features they put into it, the more likely they are to get new buyers of the device. But also with things like the Quad Cortex and the Tone X, with them is also typically a cloud internet service that allows you to share and download presets or captures or tone models from other users. And right now, if you look at that, those are services that we get for free without having to spend any extra money. So on my Quad Cortex, not only do I expect releases from Neural DSP, but I can go out of the Cortex Cloud for free, download any of the captures that other folks have shared for free. And it's really, for me, it's been great in terms of just kind of controlling my gear acquisition syndrome, because it allows me to go out and try new things without having to spend a lot of money. But to the side of that is also this notion of third-party extensions to those devices. So go to Amalgam and buy captures and things like that. And this is where we're getting to the realm of you're spending money on capabilities that then, as a guitarist who likes to cycle through equipment, you can't really resell. So I probably spent a couple $100 on captures from Amalgam, and if I ever sold my Quad Cortex, which I have no intention to do, there's no ability for me to get that money back, and there's no way for me to transfer the rights to those captures to the new owner of the Quad Cortex, unless in some way I'm transferring my neural account to them, which is an interesting idea about, is that even possible? So if we flip it around and we think about it from the aspects of the people who make and build these modelers and provide all these services, you start to see kind of where the problem is there. If I'm selling you a device, you have an expectation of getting free upgrades year after year after year, having free access to a cloud service that I need to run so that my users can share all these presets or captures and things like that. There's a fundamental kind of economic disconnect there in terms of how I can continue to run this business if I'm not getting additional revenue from you as it goes along. Obviously, you can say that that's built into the margin of the device, but to a certain extent, that breaks down after a while. After a few years, it's not as profitable per user as it once was. Like I said, the expectation is you're getting new users into the ecosystem by all of these features and capabilities and upgrades, but at some point, you start to hit a kind of saturation in the market, so to speak. So let's think about what this might mean for the future of kind of modelers and how we might buy and pay for not only the devices, but the services and the extensions and the models and captures, things that go with them. If we think about how video games kind of progressed over time, it used to be, you bought a game, you plugged it into your computer or your PlayStation or your Xbox, and you played it, and it was fun. And then if you wanted to, you could trade it in, or you could sell to somebody, or you just go get the next game. And the other aspect of that is, especially with the consoles, the PlayStations and the Xboxes, those manufacturers were actually selling those devices at a loss because the revenue was coming from licensing on the games. And so they weren't so much building the revenue streams on selling PlayStations. What they wanted was get a PlayStation in the home of millions and millions of users so that they can sell games and they can license games. And so you take that and then you combine it with some of the trends in games around things like Fortnite or Overwatch, where it's, number one, the game is pretty much free. You're not paying for the game. You have to pay a regular kind of yearly service in order to access the multiplayer capabilities. And that's built into the Xbox and PlayStation as well. There's a yearly fee for being able to play on the network. In addition to that, you've got a lot of like little microtransactions. If anybody has kids that play Fortnite, they're going to always spend V-Bucks on this skin or that weapon or whatever it might be. And so when I think about that, I wonder if we're not going to see some of that introduce itself into the market for guitar modelers. So think about a future where maybe there's less focus on the hardware. And the hardware is important; it needs to work really well. But the value and the profit is not necessarily from selling the hardware. The hardware is there just really to be a mechanism for you to engage the software on a kind of guitar rig. And you wonder if those modeling devices aren't really eventually going to become just kind of specialized PCs with kind of built-in MIDI switchers and audio interfaces and things like that. And maybe you could load whatever plugin you wanted onto that device and it could run it as a pedal, so to speak. And we think about how we pay for it. We wonder if it's not going to end up being kind of more like the Tonex model, where the devices tend to be relatively inexpensive. So you're paying a couple $100s for a small one, or maybe like $400 or $500 for a bigger one. But really what you're doing is you're paying for the software service that goes with it. And that gets you access to, number one, an expanded library of models and effects. Number two, it gives you access to a cloud service where you can share and interact with other users and share presets and captures and tone models and those kinds of things. And I wonder if we're not going to get to a place where we're paying a little less for the device, but we're paying some kind of yearly subscription for what we use. And do we maybe start to also unbundle what's on the device? So maybe there's certain models on the device that I don't care about because I don't play metal or something like that, and so I don't need those amps, and I'm willing to say I don't want those. Can we unbundle them, so to speak? Will we be paying for just the things on the device that we want to use and not paying for the things that we don't really have any interest in? And so I'm interested to see kind of where this might go, and kind of interested in your thoughts of, is that something that you would accept? Would you accept a device like the Quad Cortex? It's powerful, and today you might pay $1,800 for it, but if instead it was $900, but you had to pay $100 a year, $200 a year in a subscription fee to get access to the neural kind of ecosystem. And maybe there's different tiers. If you look at Tonex, when you buy the Tonex 1, you get access to a certain level of their software. If you buy the full Tonex device, you get extra software. And you can get the free software, you can download it, you get access to like 20 different models, and you get a limited access to the cloud service. Whereas when you buy the devices, you get a certain level of software where you get unlimited access to the cloud service. So I wonder if you might get that kind of thing to where when we buy these modelers, it's really about just getting it in our hands, and then it's just a vehicle for them to have a subscription service, and we're paying for that continual update and continual enhancement and new models and things like that. And we're buying microtransactions where we're buying tone captures and things like that. And for the companies, that allows them to have a revenue stream that's continual based on the usage. I do think if it goes this way, it's more likely we're going to be demanding more regular releases and new features. We're always going to be what's coming next, what's coming next. Whereas today we're kind of a little more tolerant of that, although maybe not as much as we should be, but we're more tolerant of that because we know we're not paying for it. Whereas if we're paying a yearly subscription, you better be giving us new amps, you better be giving us new features, and it better be getting better, release after release after release. And they better come more consistently and on time so that it's not just, when is it going to be released? Soon. So I'm interested in kind of your thoughts around this and whether you think, this makes any sense at all. Would you be willing to kind of participate in a kind of guitar model or that has that kind of approach to whereas we're going to sell you the device as cheap as we can, and then you're just going to pay us a subscription to get access to everything, and they're going to keep it updated and give you new features and new capabilities. You can share things with other users, and you're paying for that service rather than paying for just the device. So let me know what you think in the comments below. I know this has been different than my usual videos, but it was really kind of an area that I've been thinking about a lot, and I'm kind of wondering where this is going to go, and I'm interested to see kind of what the next 2 to 3, 4, 5 years looks like. And I wonder if it isn't going to look much different than it does today. And the old ideas of, I buy a Quad Cortex and I expect continuous updates forever without having to pay any more money than just buying the device. I wonder if that's going to go away. And it's going to be more about like it is for Tonex, to where, you can get the device for cheap, but then you got to use the software. Maybe you've got to pay to upgrade the software, that kind of thing. So let me know what you think. And as always, thanks for watching.